Voters in the 4th Congressional District will elect a new member of Congress this year. This is the seat currently held by Joe Kennedy. He is running for Senate against Ed Markey. The 4th District stretches from Brookline to Fall River. It includes 34 cities and towns with nearly 730,000 people. There are 8 Democrats and 2 Republicans running for the seat, and John Keller is introducing us to all of the candidates throughout the month.
Today, it's Jesse Mermell of Brookline. Jesse, welcome.
Thanks, John. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Give the voters your elevator pitch. They have lots of choices in this primary, and they'll have choices again in November. Why choose you?
You know, in a crowded and talented field, I think that I'm uniquely qualified to take on Donald Trump and his minions, to fight for a healthcare system that works for everyone and for reproductive justice, and to lead an equitable recovery from COVID-19. This has been the work of my life. There is no one else in this field with the track record, with the experience, with the coalition and the vision, both to win in this election, but much more importantly, to lead in Congress and represent the entire district north to south. And I'd be honored to earn people's votes on September 1st or before, as early voting and vote by mail begins.
Can you share a little bit of your background that you'd like the voters to know about?
Sure. I've been working in progressive politics in Massachusetts for over 20 years. I headed up external affairs at Planned Parenthood during the heart of the ACA debate, fighting to make sure that contraceptive coverage was included in that important federal legislation. Unfortunately, something the Supreme Court just gutted, so I'm looking forward to going to Congress and trying to right that wrong. I was Governor Patrick's communications director, spent 6 years on the select board in Brookline. For the past 5 years, I've been running the Alliance for Business Leadership, the socially responsible progressive business organization in Massachusetts, working on things that we know are good for families, for workers, for the environment, for equity, that are also good for business and the economy, like paid family and medical leave, earned sick time, investing in transportation, education, and housing in communities that have been left behind. So this has very much been the work of my life. And the reason I'm running is because I want to take that fight to Washington.
If you're elected, what would be your first choice of committee assignment, and what can voters expect would be the first bill you'd want to file?
So I hope you'll accept this with the asterisk that things are changing so quickly now in the world that I reserve the right to make a decision in January that best reflects the immediate needs of the district. But I expect I'd request to be on energy and commerce and transportation. Energy and commerce, because of what I just said. I ran external affairs at Planned Parenthood. We see reproductive justice under attack. We saw the incredible harmful Supreme Court case from just this week. And any legislation dealing with that would come through that committee very likely. And I feel a real sense of responsibility to be at the forefront of that work. And then transportation, I've been working in that space for a long time. I spent the past 5 years on the Executive Committee of Transportation for Massachusetts. I was on the state's Regional Rail Advisory Committee. If we want to tackle our climate crisis, if we want to create economic growth, if we want to improve quality of life and public health, we need to invest in public transit. That means fixing the Green Line, finally making South Coast Rail happen, investing in our regional transit authorities in Taunton and Attleboro and Fall River, and so much more. It's a committee that could have a real impact on this district. It's something that I'm very passionate about in my nerdy way. And so I expect those would be the 2 committees. I would imagine that paid family and medical leave is specifically an issue I'll jump in on immediately. I was on the 8-person team here in Massachusetts that negotiated what is the strongest paid family and medical leave law in the country. I was incredibly proud to do that work, and I want to take that expertise to fight for a national paid leave law so that no one has to go through the natural ups and downs of life, starting a family, getting sick, God forbid, having to care for a loved one who's ill without fearing financial ruin, particularly right now as we're going through this global pandemic.
As you know, Jesse, there are quite a few residents of the 4th Congressional District who are employed by the defense industry. Military and defense spending is a major economic factor in Massachusetts. It's been 15 years since Congress has authorized the formation of a BRAC, Base Realignment and Closure Committee. So my question to you is, first of all, if there's going to be a new BRAC in the next Congress, and you're a member of that Congress, would you support cuts in the defense budget? And would you support cuts in defense spending that would affect these workers from the 4th District?
Well, that's a hypothetical that I think is very challenging to answer, not understanding the specifics of what might be in front of me in a given situation. But I do think that we have to look at military and defense spending as a way to reallocate funds to other areas of our federal budget that, quite frankly, are also about defense and security. So when I think about climate change, and I apologize, there's a big truck going by outside, so sorry if you can hear that. But when I think about climate change, that is a defense issue. That is about our safety and security as a nation. When I think, quite frankly, about our crumbling healthcare system, that is about our safety and security, cybersecurity. We have grown the amount that we spend on defense significantly. It used to be, I believe, under the Obama administration, we spent more than the next 7 countries combined, and Donald Trump's administration has made it more than the next 10 countries combined. Why aren't we looking at investing in things like climate change, like public health, like cybersecurity as defense spending? That, to me, is an approach that we need to take, particularly in this moment when we have seen how vulnerable our country is at a time with horrible management coming out of the White House. And I think looking at defense and military spending to reallocate for those other areas makes sense.
Even if it means it might cost jobs in the district?
Again, I would need to see the specifics, but I think that cutting defense spending is something that needs to be examined.
You mentioned Congresswoman Presley. She's one of a number of elected officials in recent weeks who called for, quote, defunding the police. Do you support that?
So I absolutely support reallocating money from police departments to invest, again, in things in the community that keep people safe. I know that the phrase defund the police means a lot of things to a lot of different people. I absolutely support taking funding from police budgets and putting them towards healthcare, towards public housing, towards transportation, open space and parks, education. If you look at a place like Eugene, Oregon, about 30 years ago, they decided that instead of every single 911 call being answered by a police officer with a gun, that 911 operator would assess whether or not you're talking about a house break-in or a violent crime, or is this about homelessness or mental health or opioids or addiction, which is, of course, a component of mental health. Perhaps we need a social worker to respond to that. Perhaps we need someone who's dealt with housing insecurity to respond to that. And while certainly things aren't perfect in Eugene, Oregon, they've seen real results in terms of changing that approach and then making investments in other parts of the community. So yes, I stand with Congresswoman Presley in calling for those reallocation of funds. And by the way, it can't just stop there. We need to end qualified immunity. There's so much that we need to do to reform policing, to reform our criminal legal system. And I'm grateful that Massachusetts has a leader like my friend, Congresswoman Presley, in doing that work.
Well, we are posting interviews with all of the candidates on our website, cbsboston.com. And here are some of the key dates for the upcoming primary. In-person early voting runs from August 22nd through August 28th. Mail-in voting applications are due by August 26th. Primary day is Tuesday, September 1st.